and welcome to Get the Table. I'm Adam Wilborn from WhatCulture, joined by another one of the Dudley Boys, Michael Hamflett from WhatCulture, here to discuss how WWE has changed CM Punk forever. Now, I suppose you can take that title in a variety of different ways, Hamflett. At the end of the day, this is not the same CM Punk back in WWE that was there a decade ago, or even really the CM Punk that was in AEW a while back.
No, this talking point, I guess, emerged in the wake of the SummerSlam match against Drew McIntyre, which was the first in what I suppose will be a series of payoffs to what many, myself included, consider to be the best feud of the year. CM Punk and Drew McIntyre's war of words, war of memes, war of personal family artifacts, and everything else that led into SummerSlam, and a match that very much divided the audience between those that, well, to simplify it, those that enjoy WWE's brand of sports entertainment storytelling and those that don't. Those that would rather keep it simple, stupid, and have a sort of violent, bloody war, a attritional fight based on the fact that these two...
The match with
MJF, I would say maybe Eddie Kingston is maybe too lofty a comparison because it's just one of the greatest things any of us have ever seen. But this idea that these two people that have been desperate to get each other finally do, and then no distractions can get in the way, no special guest referee, no monologuing, no symbolic bracelet, all of these sort of criticisms that were levied at the match, led to further conversation about CM Punk. And this time, it wasn't about if CM Punk was physically able to wrestle a match without a bone breaking or a muscle tearing. It wasn't to do with exactly what kind of engine CM Punk had. It was instead about if the Phil Brooks that would be willing to have this kind of match wouldn't have been so compromising at various other points in his career. It's so strange. It's like people are looking for a thing to criticize him for. But that was very much the take, was that, like, you know, certainly this title is like swimming around this idea that the CM Punk that is now in WWE is so willing to fall in line with how WWE do business that he will happily do a match that involves like a lot of story being told around a bracelet rather than, for example, a lot of story being around just punching somebody really hard in the face.
Yes.
And both are valid as whatever ways to tell stories in wrestling. And I guess that's like the jumping off point for all of this, because that match certainly did kind of find every single emotional response, didn't it?
Yeah, I was rather surprised by seeing the sort of backlash to this match online after SummerSlam. You and I talked about it in our SummerSlam review. I loved that show. I think it was probably one of my favourite shows, if not my favourite show of the year across the board. I thought every match gave you something. And I didn't have an issue. As much as I loved CM Punk's performances in AEW, I didn't have an issue. Maybe because I've just sort of anticipated that with the way he's been sort of factored back into WWE, with the way that it played out. I wasn't anticipating, this bloody, double juice match, especially when you've got someone like a character like Seth Rollins being the special guest referee. I thought he was going to go that way, and I enjoyed it going that way. Punk has obviously been, for a long time, someone who comes in and sort of shakes things up, whether it be him first arriving in ECW, of course, or the pipe bomb, naturally, to all the years of speculation about how much the business missed him when he was gone. And then obviously AEW, and I mean, he was it's a tired phrase now, but he was a real game changer for them. And there were questions when he returned there about, like, well, what version of CM Punk are we going to get? Because he was 35-ish when he first left WWE. He's now 45, of course. It's
a 7-year absence. Taking bumps.
Yeah, so you'd be at 42 or whatever, and what was he going to be able to do? And then immediately out the gate with that Darby Allin match, you were like, okay. And then, as you mentioned, the Kingston, the Darby Allin, the MJF stuff. And yet some people are sort of mourning the fact that guy hasn't been the one who's shown up in ring in WWE. But I don't know. What do you make of his SummerSlam performance?
Well, I loved it too, but to differ slightly from your stance on it, and I tweeted this at the time as the show was ongoing, I think the words were, I love this as much as I know people will hate it.
Yes.
And I think I felt genuinely that was a match where you were... if you're predisposed to enjoy stories being told that way, you will have probably thought it was just a masterclass. And if you're predisposed to not like those, you would have just thought, oh my God, what have they done to my boy? Or something like that, you know? Again, like this is me trying to show balance because I was on the extremely positive side of it. I'll say this, right, for a criticism of CM Punk specifically, away from the drama of the match, I've never taken a bump in my life. Like, my cardio is pathetic. Look at me. Like, he looked tired.
Yeah.
Like, he looked like he was sweating buckets. He looked like that was a hard night's work. But I didn't sense any of that like I did immediately in the Rumble. I think we were doing a live stream, and I saw him go to the corner after the injury, and I was kind of like concerned. I mean, he still got through it and had that match within a match against Cody, which is easily forgotten now, but that was still one of those dramatic bits of in-ring WWE have put on all year while injured. And I was watching the match thinking, well, I have no fear for his body. He looks like he's getting around well, and it doesn't feel like he's like holding back on things, and he goes up to the top to do his Jerry Sag's elbow, and he does it. Ultimately, he does it, and he gets back up and all the rest of it. He did look like it was exhausting work, but at no point was that in betrayal of the match. At no point was he sort of like what would be like the Undertaker against Roman Reigns. WrestleMania main event. There was a tired man, simply too tired for the task at hand. That was not the case in CM Punk versus Drew McIntyre.
I think rust is a real thing. We've talked about it on numerous occasions. And
wrestler cardio's like nothing else.
Yeah, he's jumped to WWE. He worked Dominic Mysterio, I think was his first match.
Those were his like house show tunes.
Like,
he did Madison
Christmas
Square Garden.
Yeah. And then obviously he had the Rumble, and then he's out again. And then this is his first singles match in WWE. It's his first match in WWE since, January.
Yeah.
So there is some excuses there. He's 45 years old, like we say, which, isn't as bad as it used to be in terms of like, you always think of like an AJ Styles. And
there are different 45s in wrestling,
But, I just think it's about adapting your style.
I think what we might get, and I think not that ultimately, say like Hell in a Cell, which is the rumoured main event of Bad Blood featuring the two, right? Say that is a match of the year contender. It is everything that maybe people wanted from the first match, rather than the Seth Rollins as the referee, rather than the bracelet, rather than all the elements that were kind of alienating to some. If that match is the match of the year, or it's just this incredible, there's the CM Punk, the master storyteller, the perfect payoff to this feud. By then it'll be 10 months deep, and like what a payoff that'll potentially be. That won't like erase what people didn't like about the first one. And I think that's maybe central to this title that, is baity, we want you to click.
Yeah.
But it won't take away that this match has now happened, and that people will feel and use the SummerSlam match as evidence, and I don't think CM Punk really has bad weeks cutting promos, but he just has some weeks that are stronger than others. But
such a high bar as well for him.
Maybe the highest in the whole company when I think about it. But like...
Yeah, even more than Cody.
Yeah. The weeks where his promo isn't the best thing on the show is considered CM Punk having a bad week, right? That's the bar he set himself with a microphone. In that ring, on that microphone, even on commentary. It's still true. Like, the SummerSlam match and the weeks where he's not the best promo on the show will be used as the weeks where either those that simply don't like CM Punk, or those that like hold a lot in them about what happened in AEW as relates to CM Punk, the person, not just the character, the person.
Yeah.
And for that matter, people that don't particularly like WWE's style of presentation, they'll look at these things and put them forth as examples of, well, if you ever hoped you were going to get a CM Punk with the jagged edge of an AEW, for better and worse, you're not going to in WWE. That's not something they're interested in. They don't want jagged edge CM Punk. They want CM Punk with the edges smoothed off. They want CM Punk who's going to be a nice, good corporate puppet who's going to, and he does this, who's going to talk about the great corporate synergy with TKO and UFC, and the guy that's going to go on and flog his action figures like a good spoke in the wheel, to use CM Punk's own words, right? Like, that is going to be one of the many sticks to beat a CM Punk with, because he opens himself up to be beaten by being CM Punk.
Yeah.
Right? And I say this as somebody kind of unashamed in my bias towards him, but able to acknowledge that if CM Punk met me, he would hate me. That we would not be friends, right? I feel like I know enough to know that like that Phil Brooks would not think much of some dickhead on the internet, no matter how much I like him. And that same Phil Brooks alienates just as many people as that adore him. And thus, as he moves through WWE, a company that historically does things to wrestlers that people don't like, this is only going to grow. This belief, this argument, this take against CM Punk, and the version of himself he puts forth. I think that disdain for that character, that dislike for that character, is only going to grow.
Now, Sidge hates when I do this because he feels it's an excuse I always use, and you can never really sort of get back to it, because by the time you get to the point that I'm talking about, then a conversation will have moved on to something else. But for me, one of the reasons why I enjoyed SummerSlam so much, not just the Punk Drew match, but the whole card, is because it was further vindication of my let stuff play out within WWE nowadays. Not just like, maybe it'd be all right on the night if Vince doesn't meddle with this too much and they can just sort of get their heads together, the people in this match, and kind of sneak one by him almost. Like across that SummerSlam card, there was so much stuff of like, right, now that makes sense why this happened then, and all of the things that came together to create such an amazing night on Saturday. Is there an argument to be made that you could still get the, like you say, jagged edge version of CM Punk further down the road? It's ring rust, like I say, and he's just getting back into singles action, and it's almost that version of smoke and mirrors to have him have a monologue-y, what the bloody hell are you doing, referee match, because he can't be super focused on it.
Yep.
Is it a case that you go, right, okay, we'll do that one, just get things back going for you, and let's not burn through everything straight away with you and Drew, because, as you mentioned, we're heading to Bad Blood, we're heading to Hell in a Cell. If we're going to do a double juice, the
WWE version of that, whatever that is,
a wild brawl, shouldn't do that twice. We should do the sort of light version of it to lead into everything, as you often say, everything ends this Sunday at Bad Blood when these two go at it at Hell in a Cell.
I mean, I think so. I dread people just watching this podcast and knowing us as presenters and what we like and what our tastes are, and then just being like, oh, they've just come to give CM Punk a pat on the back for a performance that half the audience hated, right? But I do believe so. I think that there's a couple of points there that I want to drill into. Number one, I would trust CM Punk could have a year of stinkers, and I would trust him in the 13th month to have the match of the year.
Yeah.
He's kind of one of them wrestlers for me personally.
Still my bucket list thing to see CM Punk wrestle live. I've not been able to do that.
There is something about him. It's a cult of personality. Cuts both ways, right? The same people that hate him, as I've just said, there will be just as much emotion for the people that love him. And I think there is never not one in the chamber from a CM Punk that's just going to stop everyone in the tracks and be like, he's just a genius. He's better at this than everybody.
WWE fans were willing him to have stinkers when he jumped to AEW. Yep. They were wanting to drop he's washed and all that.
The same thing as, yes.
Reverse applies here, not only because of AEW fans' feelings towards Punk and the way that all ended, but also, because they had that image of, that's the version of him, and this is the watered down version almost in WWE.
Version. You're right. That's a great point. The WWE hardcores went in 2-footed on Punk when he returned at the slightest speed of sweat in his hair.
Yes.
That was happening at the time. I do remember that. And he was putting together a generational run. And he put together, and it was 50% of, and maybe let's argue more of, what I still think is AEW's best ever program. And
I agree.
And a generation of fans, all-timer, top 5. This current era of fans will look at that as this sort of, we'll put it on the highest of pedestals, the work he did against MJF.
Yeah.
And Eddie Kingston, again, that whole thing, we've been sort of relitigating that lately. It's was that perfect? Was that wrestling perfection? I think it might have been, So the work stood up for itself, even when there were people constantly trying to chop him down. And I truly believe that will happen again for CM Punk in WWE. But the other point, I think it's never been more important to stress as we record this, not just in the wake of SummerSlam, but in the wake of the Raw that followed SummerSlam. WWE is the process trusting company.
Yeah.
I can't believe those words are coming out of my mouth, even now, right? But if you look, not to sort of divert this too much away from CM Punk and into just my usual Fed cheerleader mode, but if you just look at SummerSlam leading into Raw and the amount of characters that didn't just get over as a one night, Bronson Reed did, right? Odyssey Jones did. There were 2 that got over as massive one night, out of nowhere moments, capital M. But just about everything else that hit across those 2 shows, and loads hit, was as a result of long-term storytelling, was as a result of continuity, was as a result of...
It's wild to be saying this, isn't it?
Insane. Clues, dropped hints, breadcrumbs, all leading to a series of payoffs that didn't just bring a final end to a story, but in fact open the door to a bunch of new avenues with which to take, featuring babyface turns, featuring heel turns. It was like, honestly, it was kind of everything that there is about pro wrestling over 2 shows. Like, maybe that's hyperbole, but like, honestly, that's I think we're going to be talking about that Raw.
Yeah.
Like, I think of the Raw 30th anniversary as like Triple H's first apex of that amazing run to WrestleMania 39, the trial of Sami Zayn. I think of that as like, my God, his ducks are in a row. And then I think I will skip to this one as the next stage of that. I was like, they're still in a row. It's been 18 months and the ducks, why haven't the ducks all fallen down? You know, like, they're still in a row. And there may be more in a row than they were before, because now this is categorically his cast of characters, his set of guys. And CM Punk is one of those guys. CM Punk, I'll use the term again, spoke in the wheel, was a term that he coined during that legendary promo, that pipe bam, as a way to criticize himself and downgrade how the wrestlers were made to feel under the increasingly weathered and deteriorating mind of an autocrat, right? CM Punk might not have a problem with being a spoke in a wheel when that wheel actually functions as a wheel and continues to roll forward.
Yeah.
You know, like he said, as a shoot and a work, I'm like here to make money, I'm not here to make friends. And even
Still
though
wants that Mania main event.
Even though that was a little line, a throwaway line in a promo, just to like give that little glint in his eye at the camera of remember who CM Punk is. Doing business has kind of always been his top priority. That's alienated people.
Yeah.
Like, he can come out, he can tell you that he is this for the boys, for the industry, for everybody else guy, and say that in one breath, and then in the other, contradict it and do what's best for who? CM Punk, right? And that's just as much as what alienates people as what fascinates people, because he is business, and I think he's such a bottom line guy. That was a big part of what blew up in AEW. Like, he maybe didn't articulate his issues with why certain wrestlers weren't chasing the bottom line enough, but ultimately that was what he saw as like a fatal flaw within that system. And the way he dealt with it, we're not going to go into that today, but the way he dealt with that was ultimately a very CM Punk way of dealing with it, like, rightly or wrongly. But at the root of it was, remember when he was saying, I'm trying to draw $1 million house here? He meant that. Yeah. Like, there was something that really stuck in his craw about the prospect of a risk of money not being drawn because everything else is fake apart from the money in the miles. Maybe he did listen to Kevin Nash after all, right? So that CM Punk is still there. CM Punk might do what he's told. CM Punk might listen and say, yes, no, yes, Triple H, no Triple H, 3 bags full Triple H. But why? Because he believes that money will be made at the end of the day. And there's recently a debate that I've noticed pop up. I think Conrad Thompson inadvertently kicked off a debate on X about saying how the best in wrestling is who's making the most money. And rightfully so, there was some quote tweets came in saying, God, there's nothing worse than analysing your favourite art form based on how much money it's making. Mm-hmm. That's capitalism crushing everything you love, right? And then there's these two sort of wars being waged about, but he's not wrong, is he? Because it's a business. It's like, is it a sport? Is it an art form? Is it either of those things? Or is it in fact a business where rich people get rich and then there's a trickle down where some wrestlers get a bit rich off it too? And nobody's really in the wrong. And like CM Punk is all of those, isn't he? Yeah. Because CM Punk is a guy that on the right day will make it feel like the highest art there is. On another day, will tell you that the sporting framework is integral to its architecture. And on a third day, we'll be like, well, I'm just here to make money. Yeah. Like CM Punk will be all of those things. And I think in this version of WWE, he earnestly believes this is where he can be all those things, and he is currently, in my opinion, buying what Triple H is selling. That might not last forever. It's a punker. But that in itself, as we've talked about before, is kind of captivating too. He gets to have his cake and eat it as long as it's not got alcohol in it, because it's sort of gripping that he might just one week lose rag on Raw. Like, and that remains the edge that he brings that almost nobody else does. That him feuding with Seth Rollins is maybe the perfect example of this, right? And this is why I kind of push back on this idea that he's being diluted to death. Because when he's saying his piece about whatever he's saying his piece, and then dun 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 dun, oh, and CM Punk has got his pipe arm in his hand and he's going like that. you buy 100% he hates it.
Yeah.
You buy 100% that in that moment is a shoot, and he's going to take turns, and he's going to CM Punk, he's going to let Seth Rollins say his bit, right? What he's probably not going to tell CM Punk, what he's not going to tell Seth Rollins is that in the middle of the SummerSlam matches that he's going to say he hates his Sabu pants. Because he's going to test him. And what's great is that hasn't it been cool watching Seth Rollins get tested and pass those tests? Yeah. How awesome has it been to see Seth Rollins hang in there with CM Punk and sometimes get the better of him? Because it is a turn-taking game, and it is dancing as much as it's fighting. And if CM Punk wanted to, he could burn the world down and cost himself his own job, and he doesn't. Why? Because he's business. Seth Rollins getting more over and more credible as a babyface as he ever has done is because he's doing so at CM Punk's expense. And CM Punk is sitting back and being like, you had a line in you. Good for you, kid. I'll ruffle your hair. And then don't ruffle my fucking hair. I'm Seth Rollins. Yeah. Like, I built this place while you were off crying off. You're like, all of that is just like making more and more money and making more and more heat. And that, I believe, is the CM Punk WWE model. Yeah. He will no longer cross the line, and a bunch of people online will go, it's goody two-shoes, Phil. But in just pushing
nowhere else to go,
pushing people as close to their own line as possible, we'll see them all make a bunch of money together.
Well, we called this video podcast "How WWE has changed CM Punk Forever." Not only has been made, you could just have titled it "How Time Has Changed CM Punk Forever." In terms of, like you say, I mean, he was like this in AEW as well. His perspective on his business. Seen him in AEW, you know, talk to people like Ricky Starks and Powerhouse Hobbs and Darby Allin, offer advice to them and form bonds backstage with those people. He's made no secret of the fact he wants to be involved in NXT, and he's made frequent appearances down there to...
He wants Shawn Michaels' job.
Yeah, to try and help out the younger talent. So maybe, you know, he's thinking, well, let's not rattle cage too much, like you say, with the edgier version of him, because you know, he's not corporate, but he thinks, well, if I screw this up, if I go too far here, I'll just be another one of those guys shouting about stuff on the internet, and they eventually just sort of, people start disregarding them, to be perfectly honest.
His ego would hate that.
Yeah.
He is not a man that wants to be disregarded.
The other thing is, like I say, he's 45. I want to circle back to his injuries now. Like, great matches, MJF, Eddie Kingston, Darby Allin, keep going on in terms of his AEW run.
Dustin Rhodes.
But like, look at what happened. He started getting injured more and more, hence the whole Jon Moxley debacle, hence, you know, I mean, after all, regardless.
The absence was happening.
He was already done. Yeah. So is it the fact, arguably, as well, that maybe injuries have caught up to him? And yes, he can still have that match that you want him to have against Drew McIntyre, for example. But you have to save it, not just because, well, we've got a few things we want to do beforehand and we want to save that for Hell in a Cell Bad Blood, but also because he can do it, but he can only do it once every 3 months or 6 months or whatever. And the injuries maybe have caught up to him. And he's just had to adapt because that's what wrestlers have to do once they get past. Kenny Omega is phenomenal, obviously, but he came back and then he got injured. I know different things.
Bryan Danielson,
like,
has had he's kind of disguised them with just countless amazing matches, but he's been injured a lot in his AEW run.
Could that be a factor then?
I think it's a factor. If
there's a question mark over the SummerSlam match of like people saying, if he goes into this match and gets injured again, what do we do?
Yeah, we were previewing it, like using the Shawn Michaels back injury from 2002 as a comparison point, weren't we? Like, how much can a single powerbomb by a Drew McIntyre look like it's going to break every bone? Like the Mortal Kombat slow motion crunch, like every bone breaks.
Was it Hobbs? Do you have a match with Hobbs in AEW? I feel like where he's selling something like that.
Like just get he's just rattling. He's just a bag of bones inside his flesh and bone and skin, basically. It's like, I think you make a point that, again, people don't attach to CM Punk because it just becomes about CM Punk. But there are a lot of broad wrestling things that you can apply to him as you would to anybody else. Like the Miz will probably want to like slow his roll a little bit, but you won't notice because the Miz never had it, was just never like operating at an intense physical level that he will do it so gradually.
I thought you were going to say the Miz there is going to be like, oh, changing your style to make sure you don't miss too many dates.
Yeah, that's how WWE...
Where'd you get that one from?
That's how WWE changed CM Punk. He's gotten over his Miz thing and he shook his hand. Like, he's respected business. No, yeah, there's all sorts of wrestling things that people don't apply to CM Punk, and Punk likes that sometimes because he wants to be seen as a special case. But because he gets seen as a special case, if fans are looking for a stick to beat him with, there suddenly is another one. What was something I was wanting to say? That was it. There was a point in the SummerSlam match where what I really loved about Punk getting into, I'll denigrate it a little bit, getting into monologue mode. The big bulging eyes as he spotted the bracelet during the Anaconda Vice, the confusion written across his face, and the decision to drop Drew McIntyre from the go to sleep when he sees the bracelet on Seth, rather than just hit him and then go for it. I think that was maybe the most egregious. If you're a critic, you know, just hit him and then get it, like, or just say to Seth, "Can I have that back, please?" But like, again, I'm buying into the story that at this point it's a red rag to a bull, and half the time CM Punk hasn't needed the red rag to start charging through things. He doesn't need the red rag to smash at the China shop sometimes, you know, like. And that's the CM Punk character. Nobody's better suited to stubbornly losing their patience over what appears to be a little thing than the Punker, right? But what I got from that match was this sudden realization, you know, something else CM Punk was really great at was being a WWE superstar.
Yes.
If you lift the incredible generational AEW run out of his CV, and the last thing he did was be a class WWE superstar, a man that figured out how to mostly be CM Punk, but do it within that system that hated him just as much as he hated it half the time. I was welcoming him back. I was glad seeing him being this kind of bombastic, theatrical, broad version of himself, because plot twist, he's great at that as well. Like Bryan Danielson was too.
Yes.
Like, he doesn't get enough credit. People like, look at, you wasted the best years of your life. Did he? Or did he like make incredible money, become a top star in spite of a system that was set up to like put a thumb on people like him? That's how amazing Bryan Danielson
and transforms the guy that they trust to put over Kofi at 35.
There's a reason why Punk and Bryan were often in the same breath. There's a reason why Punk and Bryan were in the handshake picture that inspired MJF to even become a wrestler, because it was both of them doing it in their own different ways. Like, they looked the same wrestler in the fact they both wore boots, trunks and kick pads and had Ring of Honor pedigree, but they were very different in their approaches to becoming big stars in WWE. And I loved watching the WWE superstar come out of CM Punk again in a way that I only really saw probably in the Samoa Joe Wembley match in his AEW run.
Yeah.
Because he gets...
3.5 stars, class. That.
Yeah. He gets tone. He gets under the skin of fans for better and worse, so he understands what's going to make them tick. And you are not telling me that when he eyed that bracelet, 50,000 people didn't tick, 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 boom at the sight of it. That noise was one of the loudest of the entire night. This match happens on a Saturday, and half the internet goes nuts, saying he's washed, saying he's finished, saying, looks like Fed has crushed Punk. Did you hear the pop he got on Raw?
Yeah.
Like, if wrestling is about playing to your audience, well, he's nailing it yet again. He's playing the best tune he can play, because, like...
He's the one they've trusted. They're going to Chicago, first episode of new NXT.
When a fan's quietest for CM Punk in WWE? When he references AEW and tries to shoot partner.
Yeah.
Like, he is working out bit by bit what that audience wants. Why? Because he wants to be perceived as the biggest star in front of that audience, because the WrestleMania main event still does matter.
Yes.
The biggest paydays still do matter. The merchandise that he's selling out the ass absolutely matters. Like, it doesn't matter. It does not matter, right, if CM Punk once said all these things about WWE and once said he left professional wrestling and he came back, and he once said, if you want to go to WWE and get a buy one, get one free WrestleMania. Like, that was then. Mm-hmm. It's a work, it's a business. I know that breaks people's hearts, and I sometimes want to have parasocial relationships with people as well. I would dare say by watching this podcast, people are arguing that I've got one with Punk himself, right? So I get it. But ultimately, if you are able to view this through the lens of being an extremely competitive business environment, but the business environment making it a better fan experience for you, you can get both. And I truly believe you can get both. I know that people use AEW ratings right now, or WrestleTix attendance figures, or pictures of the half buildings, whatever. I know there are arseholes on the internet that use those for extremely bad faith grifts, right? I don't care about that. What I do care about is the other side of that. Full buildings, jacked up houses, loud crowds, right? People that are invested in saying yeet or yeah. Why? Because, like, it elevates the whole product. WWE is hot, full stop. The product is hot because a bunch of characters are competing to be the hottest on the show, right? I don't care really that the WrestleTix number is really high. I care about what that high number reflects.
Yes. It's funny as well because I was just thinking back to after he returned at Survivor Series, and I mean, who could have seen that one come in?
The OTJ.
But I just didn't remember the conversations in the WhatCulture office of like, well, he's back. How long do you reckon for?
Yeah.
Like, because we were talking about, contracts and what have you. And we weren't talking about that. We weren't saying how many years contract do you reckon WWE's offered him. It's how long before.
When does he blow it up?
Yeah. There was pasty bets about whether he makes it to Mania or not.
I lost one because of injury, not because
but
of,
but it's injury and exactly his personality, and maybe yes, WWE's changed CM Punk if you want to make that argument, but it's changed him into someone that thankfully that means we're going to get 2-3 years out of.
Feels that way, doesn't it?
I've never seen CM Punk. You were lucky enough to see him at All In. Yeah. People have seen him at WrestleManias and stuff in the past. I've never seen him. I want to be there for that. The moment he's injured for 40, I'm like, oh, God, that means I've got another cycle to get through. But he still wants that main event, as you mentioned. And to conclude this now and look to the future, past even Drew and Bad Blood and what have you, this version of CM Punk, whether you want to say he's washed or he's taking it easy or whatever, or just as I think maybe he's conserving it for the big occasions that aren't just after he comes back for an injury or whatever. He said in Baltimore, didn't he? He was like, nothing's promised. I wasn't sure if I was going to go into SummerSlam and be like, well, that's the last match I can ever have because something else has broken in me. Do you think he ever wins a world title again?
I do, because I think they being WWE know the value of that.
Yeah.
The great thing about CM Punk, if he sees out his contract of whatever it is, and
you have to be a long one as well, because I don't see Cody or Gunther dropping it anytime soon.
No. And this is it. I think like recently there was conversations about wanting to renegotiate his deal. I think there's probably been like dollar signs that have been seen by both promoter and performer that have been like, let's talk turkey again on this one. And I've kind of proven myself that I'm going to be reliable. Can we turn a 2-year deal into a 5-year? I'm speculating, but you know what I mean?
Yes. And factor in maybe some involvement in NXT. Yeah.
Yeah. So the longer term deal, Punk himself has gone on record and says he wants to be there forever. He did an interview with Denise Salcedo where he actively name checked, had this been the WWE in 2014, I might not have left. Now, that could just be a bit of pandering, but you sense there's an element of truth because how many other wrestlers have just said how much better it is without naming... He named Vince McMahon, but how many wrestlers have just said that's never been better?
Yeah.
And you know what they're saying. You know what they're getting at. They just don't want to say that. They don't want to invoke the name and then make it about something else. They just want to say, I love coming to work.
Yeah.
But we know what they're saying, right? And Punk was just one of the ones that was willing to name Vince McMahon. How much of that is true, we don't know. But right now, if you're Punk... you feel like it would be true. As you say, this would be a very silly bridge to burn, no matter if he is just 100% himself and he can't not say something if he disagrees, or he can't not put somebody in a headlock and maybe choke him a little bit. Like, if he can't do that this time. Shouldn't have done it last time. Funny. Shouldn't have done it last time. Can't do it this time. But he might, because that's Punk, right? But to answer your question, I think he sees through that. And something I want to remind people of, because Punk's the easiest one to forget because he's so goddamn real, right? Do you know when he did moves to Drew and Drew sold them? That was because two men were working together, right?
Yeah.
That tells you something. You can believe in the hate and then forget that they don't hate each other when you're watching a match. And great, because that means the job's done. But he did moves to him and Drew did moves back.
Drew was beaten by that Anaconda Vice. It was done.
Yeah.
If he hadn't let go, he was done. And I mentioned this when we talked about the bit with Rollins about the shouting at him. Like, I think if Rollins despises him to the point of like, no. He's not just going to stand there and take it and say, right, now it's my turn to say, well, I'm the referee and I run this place.
They're working.
Yeah.
Like, that amazing line, it was definitely part of the story. Like, it may not all be about me, but it's never going to be about you. I know, press a button, can't you, please?
Oh my God.
Huge, absolutely huge. Like, perfect for like where their story is ultimately going to go. That's definitely in the plan. And if Rollins doesn't like that, he's got enough power at this point to pick his spots and put some red pen through it and be like, I'm not letting you go in on me like that. Not while I'm lying down on the floor after selling your move.
Yeah, exactly.
You know what I mean? Like, we're not doing that. We're doing something else. So, like, what you watched was collaboration, working together, you know? And you're going to hopefully see more of that. And
more like that promo when they first got 3 of them got together.
A perfect comparison. As gripping as that was.
It was amazing.
Right? And I'm sure they were like, we got him eventually, right? And Triple H was like, just about, half of you forgot the story at various points. But like, I don't imagine they're like sharing drinks backstage after, well, not Pepsi's backstage afterwards, but a little bit of them would have all been mind. It was hot, wasn't it? And that creates trust, and that creates a bond. And at some point, Drew and Punk's program's going to finish, and Drew and him are going to chat, and they're going to be like, you know what, I really didn't like you, and what I said out there was real. You know that, don't you? And he's like, what I said it was real, you know, don't you? Punk's going to go, yeah, and I felt the same too. We did good though, didn't we? And like Drew's going, yeah, and they're going to shake hands, and that's going to be that, and that's going to happen again and again and again.
As Paul Rudd meme, look at us, huh? Would have thought, not me.
Over and over again. Every feud Punk's going to have, if it's a guy that didn't like him, is going to end with a Paul Rudd meme because they're going to come out a bit better than they went in, right? And that's the value of a CM Punk, and that's what carries him to a world title. To finally answer your question, that's what carries him to a world title, because he's going to build trust with the people that didn't want him back, the people that grew up adoring him, and we see a bunch of them on NXT. I bet cannot wait to get in there with him. Like, I bet Roxanne Perez is vying for that intergender match. With AJ Lee and a partner of her choosing. She must be desperate for it. We were talking about, me and Phil in the office were talking about Joe Hendry, currently in NXT, must be itching just to get to the Royal Rumble for who he gets to exchange a few punches with for the pop of his entrance theme. And if Punk's out there, he's done it. He's thrown hands with a CM Punk, right? Or whoever else is in there. That's the value of a CM Punk to this roster right now. Triple H knows that. Right, if he can keep him on side, he knows what he offers, right? They like some of the same wrestlers. They get some of the broken business. They've watched Harley Race tapes and all that, right? The world title, when it is currently with Cody Rhodes or currently with Gunther, is absolutely the prize to win in pro wrestling.
I don't know which one I want, that or, The Rock might be champion at some point. Roman Reigns, I know he was working with him previously, but it's not the same Roman Reigns that there was when he was there back in, 2014 or whatever.
I'm not being hyperbolic here. You've named 4 opponents. They're all dream matches.
Yeah.
Like, Cody Rhodes and CM Punk is...
They're all WrestleMania main events.
And Punk wants one, right? Cody Rhodes and CM Punk, for me, is my ultimate wrestling dream match because I feel like I had it ripped away and somehow it's been given back to me.
Yes.
That's why that match means so much to me. It was always about the guy that said he was going to do it and the guy that actually did it, and that's why AEW was the perfect destination. And then, it's all gone. And it turns out the actual perfect destination is the Fed. And like, so I get that match with that story, but I get the bells and whistles of WWE, and it's like, actually, it's even more perfect than it was before. I know people will disagree, but whatever.
He's not wrestled Seth yet, we should point out either.
Seth, that was literally a WrestleMania main event before it wasn't. So there's another one. Gunther is just, I never ever in my life thought to see that. Oh my God. Every single chop is going to be like, he's broke CM Punk's body. Oh no. Like, that's going to be unbelievable, right? The Rock, all their history. I saw the Elimination Chamber spot where he spat in his face on Twitter today, and I was like, book it for WrestleMania, please. And then CM Punk versus this Roman Reigns. Are you kidding me, right? Like, you're going to have to book it in Vegas because that's where the millions of dollars will fly out of all the machines the second they walk out there.
Put it in the Sphere.
Put it in the Sphere. Sell tickets for $1 million a shot and sell the Sphere out, right?
We'll be there.
And how's that going to work? He's a money player. The matches, for the time being, are money matches. I say for the time being because, of course, you can't have this podcast and not talk about the risk of injury.
Yeah.
You can't talk about the risk of a backstage blow-up. You can't even not consider that this NXT stuff, this player coach stuff, happens quicker than we think. And he just goes, all right. Like, my new friend, Paul, who, I can wear my tie too. Look, we hit each other in the face now. Don't hate each other. Has actually offered me this golden opportunity, and I'm going to take it. Like, there are a lot of different ways that all of this stuff doesn't happen, but I think the mere fact that if you were locked into this run, and you know that they're all potentially on the table, you are rooting for this Punk run to work.
Yes.
And I think that's what maybe hasn't always been the case. In AEW, you pointed out before, the WWE hardcores, I'm a WWE hardcore, the grifters and the whatever, they were rooting for that to fail. AEW fans / people that hate CM Punk, whether they want to admit it or not, are rooting for this to fail. 50,000 people at SummerSlam. Me and you. A bunch of people that have just given him record merchandise sales. A bunch of people that have allowed him to go back into a room with Nick Khan and Paul Levesque and whoever and say, double my contract, mate. are clearly rooting for this to succeed.
Yes.
And that is a different narrative than the one we've had about the cult of CM Punk since 2021. And maybe that is how WWE has changed CM Punk forever.
It's not a bad thing. It's a good thing, guys. But let us know your thoughts on it in the comments section below or on X at WhatCulture WWE. Watch, you can follow both of us. You can follow Michael Hamflett at
Michael Hamflett.
Follow me at Adam Wilborn. Follow us all at WhatCulture WWE. And if you're a fan of this sort of thing, by the way, we do these very regularly at WhatCulture Wrestling, wherever you get your podcasts from. There's also the WhatCulture Wrestling podcast video channel as well, which you can go and check out right now as well. But for now, this has been Get the Table. My thanks to Michael Hamflett. Thank you for joining us, and we will see you soon.